Hello, I'm Kari with the Western Ranch Library, and in today's Adulting 101, I'm going to be talking to you about getting your first apartment, the things you need to prepare for, look for, hopefully answer any questions that you might have. Before I worked at the library, I was a property manager for many years, so I did rent to a lot of students and first-time renters, so I will hopefully use that experience and anticipate your questions and help answer them. So when you are first thinking about getting an apartment, chances are it'll be before you're 18, and there are a few ways that you can kind of prepare for that. I won't talk too much about establishing credit and such because we will have a future Adulting 101 video discussing how to establish credit for the first time. There are some things that you can do, such as open a bank account, start saving money, open a checking account where you have a debit card, maybe you have a part-time job and you have direct deposit. So things like that are some things you can do to help get started, jumpstart that, and start saving money. It will cost a lot of money to move into your first place, especially here in California. Our rents are going up higher, and with that, you probably will need to get roommates. So first off, the things that you should know before moving into your first apartment is you will need to make at least 3 times the rent. So that could be you yourself if you make that much, or if you have 2 or 3 other roommates, depending on how big the place is. That will be all of your income combined generally. So you will need to make that much. You will need to have rental history, and you will need to have at least, generally they ask for 6 months of rental history of employment. Sometimes you'll have that and sometimes you won't. Generally you won't have rental history yet if you're just turning 18. So what property managers and owners usually ask for is either a double deposit or a guarantor or cosigner. What the cosigner does is basically signs the agreement and basically guarantees that your rent will be paid every month, that you will follow the rules, and that will help you establish your rental history. Sometimes after you've fulfilled your lease obligations, so say you signed a 1-year lease, you can ask that your cosigner be removed and then you can continue on. So if you've paid your rent every month on time, chances are you might be able to have that cosigner removed and then you can just finish. So picking roommates. Your first instinct might be to pick your friends and people that are familiar to you, and that is not always the best thing to do, because if you rent a place with a couple of other friends and one of them skips out and doesn't pay the rent anymore and just moves out and leaves, you are generally still stuck in that lease agreement and you will still have to come up with their portion of the rent. You would have to take care of any like small claims or anything with that roommate separately. So just keep that in mind, that you do pick responsible roommates, people that you know are consistently either in school and maybe have financial aid to help pay for their rent, or consistently have a job, things like that, pay their bills, all of that good stuff. Going to apply for an apartment, you'll first find one and you'll determine if you meet the qualifications, if you make at least enough of the rent. If you don't have rental history or credit, you're going to need to ask if they do accept cosigners or if they do accept an extra deposit. Some places do, some places don't. It's not the same. And this is whether you go with the property management company or with the private owner that perhaps rents out their apartment or home or condo on their own. And once you see the place and you decide, yes, this is the one for me, this is what I want, you're going to need to fill out an application. And the application is sometimes They charge for it. It's usually $25 and up, and the reason they charge is because the credit check, and if they do a criminal check as well, those do cost money and they need to recoup the cost somehow. So just be prepared that they do ask for that. When you go to fill out the application, they will ask for a driver's license, California ID, or passport, so an official government document, and your social security card. Those are very common. They'll need copies of those. Usually your last two, your most recent two pay stubs, so and sometimes even like your bank statements, they can ask for. So do be prepared for that. When you fill out the application, make it legible. It's sort of like filling out a job application. You want to be as honest as possible. So keep that in mind. Do be as honest as possible. If there's gaps in your job history, you need to put that. And just, make sure you put your best face forward. When you go to pay the application fee, then they usually ask for a money order or cashier's check. Money orders you can get at most convenience stores and grocery stores, and cashier's check you can get at your bank. So if you've established an account, you can go ahead and get a cashier's check there. They do cost a couple of dollars usually, and then you'll submit that with your application. Usually it takes a couple days to hear back, and then they'll let you know, and then you establish a move-in date. What you want to do before you move in is to find out what utilities need to be paid. So PG&E, that would be your gas and electric. Water, sewer, and garbage sometimes is the tenant's responsibility, so you need to determine that. If you need cable or internet, you'll need to call them, and then you'll give them your move-in date, and then that way they can set it up to start service on that date. So that way when you move in, you're not without water or you're not without electricity, because sometimes the property manager has it taken out of the owner's name, or the owner might take it out of their name. There's different scenarios, so you just want to make sure and be prepared. Another thing is to contact the post office and forward your mail there, so that way you can make sure you get your mail, because that does take a couple weeks to forward. And you can do that online at USPS.com, or you can go into one of your local post offices and get a change of address form. So once you determine the utilities and you make sure those are turned on and everything, you want to make an appointment to sign a lease agreement. And this can be an intimidating time for some people. Some leases are many pages, and some are just 2 pages. It varies. It varies by property management company, by owner. There's not really a standard lease agreement that everyone has to use, so they can add things and take things that they might not pertain to that property. So keep that in mind. If you go and you're going to sign your first lease, you might want to bring someone who has rented before so they can help answer your questions. And feel free to ask the owner or property manager questions about the leases you're signing if you need clarification. Even if they're rushing you, don't feel like you have to be rushed. If they need you to hurry up and sign it, then ask for a copy of the lease, take it home, and then take that time to really familiarize yourself with it. Don't just sign it. I know a lot of times when we get our first place or our first car, we're just so excited, we just sign away and we don't realize what we're signing. And then what happens is later on, when you get a notice, like a warning notice, or you're written up for, something, and for instance, pets are a huge thing. Some places don't allow pets, and people will bring home a little cute kitten or dog thinking it's okay without checking first, and their lease says no pets. So not only do you have to get rid of this pet now, find it a new home, but you've usually will receive a warning notice, and if you weren't prepared, then you're going to feel maybe defensive, like, wait, why are you picking on me? It's just a little kitten, So that will happen. Make sure, if they allow smoking or not, if they allow, guests, like as far as, how long can a person stay with you before they need to be added to the lease? A lot of places it's 2 weeks. So you want to keep that in mind if you have a friend staying over. Usually 2 weeks is the longest they can stay before being added to the lease. Now, this probably varies per lease, so you want to make sure that you are aware of that. You also want to make sure that you know exactly what will be charged when you move out. So, like if you'll be charged for painting, for cleaning the carpet, for cleaning. So chances are when you move in, it's been clean, the carpet's been professionally steam clean, and the unit's been fully painted. So if you move out in 6 months and your security deposit is charged before you move in, that is to cover any cleaning and damages when you move out. So you ideally would like to get all of that back. And so you need to leave the unit as clean as you received it, if not better, which is always a good thing to really leave a good impression and get that good rental history established, so they will give you a good recommendation for your next house or apartment wherever you move to. And it's just the right thing to do. So most places do require that you have the carpets professionally steam cleaned and you show a receipt that you've had it cleaned. It depends, so do check. You don't want to rely on your security deposit for your next place or for a bill or something, and then have a couple $100 taken out, and then you're surprised later. If your unit needs touched up, like painting, you can always ask and get the exact color paint and touch it up yourself if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, just know that a portion of that will come out of your deposit. Again, it varies, but it's always important to keep that in mind so you're not blindsided, and to understand if that's part of your lease agreement. And even if it's not in your lease, it is pretty much a standard that you leave the unit the way that you found it. So after you do sign the lease and you've called all the utilities and you have everything set up, comes move-in day. So move-in day, you will generally pay the first month of rent. And generally they will ask for a first full month of rent. So say you move in on the 15th of the month, generally they will ask for the first full month of rent and then prorate the second month, meaning that you only paid the second month half a month of rent. So it depends, but also again, check and make sure so you have that. A lot of times they will ask for the security deposit and first month's rent in cashier's check or money order form. You can also set up like your rental payments to come out direct deposit out of your bank account. You can ask if you can write checks. So there are different methods to paying your rent. So move-in day comes and you're going to want to do a walkthrough, and some property managers do it beforehand and then you sign it. Some do it with you. It just depends. So you want to make sure that you take your own pictures, that they are dated if possible. So the date on your phone perhaps, and then when you print them, it'll have the date and time stamped on them. Keep them in a folder with a copy of your lease. You always want to keep that somewhere with you in your apartment, because you can refer back to that if something does happen and you feel like you were charged for something when you moved out that was already there. You will have proof. So it's always a wise thing to do. You can also ask the property manager or owner to sign the pictures, and that they have seen them. Usually they will take their own as well. So it's something you can maybe mutually sign off on pictures, things like that. But it's always a good idea just to protect yourself, because if someone has a lot of properties, they're not going to remember if there was a little crack in a window or things like that. Or say you've lived there for a couple years, you're not going to remember, hey, was that door stopper broke the whole time, or things like that. So we'll talk in our next video about actually the walkthrough, light bulbs, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, things like that that you need to think about. This video is just purely like the paperwork part of it, just to kind of what you would expect, and so you're prepared and not any way intimidated or nervous. So there's no stupid questions, so don't worry about asking questions. When you do move in, make sure you do get a copy of your lease and your walkthrough to include in with your pictures. And you want to check windows to make sure there's no cracks. The first day that you get the keys and move in, you want to check the shower, you want to check the air conditioner, the heater. You want to check and make sure everything works, so that way you can let your property manager or owner know right away that something's not working, so that way they can take care of it. You don't want to wait for things to kind of build up and then let them know. You want to go ahead and let them know right away, especially say you move in on Friday and for some reason your shower doesn't work. Chances are it might not get fixed till Monday, so that's a whole weekend without a shower. So you want to check things like that, check your stove burners, things like that. We'll talk about that more. But make sure you have all that written down. Keep that in mind. You want to make sure too, if you have a laundry room on site or if you have laundry in the unit, if you have it on site, you want to make sure the hours, if it needs a key, how much, so that way you can plan for it. Nothing's worse. When I moved into my first apartment, I didn't realize it closed at 9 o'clock and it would be locked, and I did not have a key when I moved in, and so my clothes were locked in there. So luckily the manager was kind enough to get my clothes out for me. So that was something I learned when I first rented my own apartment. You also want to think of parking spaces, where you're supposed to park, where guest parking is. Sometimes your car can get towed if you're in the wrong parking spot, things like that. If there's a gym or a pool on site, do you have the key and the information, the hours for that? And as far as a key goes, you want to make sure that you make a copy of your key. You want to give it to someone you trust, like a family or friend, so that way they can, if you're locked out like at 3 in the morning, a lot of managers or owners are not going to come and let you in. They're not required to, so you want to make sure that you have an extra copy or two around, so that you can get yourself in. Some are nice like that, but it's not their job. So and some might tell you to call a locksmith, which can be quite expensive. So you want to be prepared for that. And I could go on and on and on, but that's basically the basics. And to always make sure you know what you're signing, that there is a lot to prepare for initially. There is a lot of money that goes out into renting your apartment first. That's why most people do get roommates. And in our next video, we'll talk about bugs that you might need to look for and things like that. But we'll save that for another video. So hopefully this answers all your questions. Like I said, if you have any, leave them down in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. This is not legal advice by any means. This is just my own experience that I'm sharing with you, and also with my children who are young adults as well, the things they have experienced. So thank you for watching. Take care.